Well, folks, America just got hit with a double shock. Now, on the one side, you've got the disturbing social media trail of Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old alleged assassin who gunned down Charlie Kirk, is finally out in the open. Now, we're talking Discord servers that are tied to Antifa, furry subcultures, trans activist meme engravings on bullet casings, and family members that are admitting he was hostile, disturbed, and consumed with hate toward Christians and conservatives. But here's the real bombshell. President Donald J. Trump, he had enough. He is not just calling out the assassin's motive. He's going straight for the money pipeline. So last night, President Trump, actually a couple nights ago, President Trump just dropped the hammer saying that the Department of Justice will now pursue RICO charges against George Soros' Open Society Foundation and the entire dark money web that's fueling these radicals. Now, this isn't just about one shooter. This is about the entire machine that has been bankrolling chaos in our streets. Now, let's be clear. This is not protest. President Trump says it's organized agitation, riots, political violence disguised under nonprofit umbrellas. So for years, the media said it was conspiracy to even whisper it. But now the president of the United States just confirmed it on record. So today, we're going to go ahead and connect the dots. Tyler Robinson's radical past, his Soros-linked ideological ecosystem, and President Trump's administration and their plan to dismantle it all with the full force of the law. Guys, we have a lot to cover today, but you're going to see exactly why this case may be the turning point in America's fight against the radical left. Hit the like button, subscribe. Folks, let's go ahead and ground this moment into today's reality, okay? Donald J. Trump sitting in the White House as president of the United States, and he just announced one of the most aggressive legal crackdowns that we've ever seen on the radical left. So Trump is directing the Department of Justice to pursue RICO charges against George Soros' Open Society Foundation and the very network of dark money NGOs that have been fueling unrest across America. So this isn't just some campaign rally talking point. This is lawfare that's turning back on the globalists themselves. Now, for years, we heard these whispers about George Soros funding chaos. For years, we've seen these NGOs bailing rioters out of jail, seating district attorney races, and pushing radical policies. But never before has a sitting president drawn a line in the sand and said, hey, look, we're going to dismantle this machine. And so that moment right there, it came right after something else broke wide open. The disturbing online history of Tyler Robinson, allegedly Charlie Kirk's assassin. Now, let's talk about who this kid really was. Now, Robinson, he wasn't some confused loner who snapped overnight. He was a 22-year-old, so-called good kid from a good family with an almost perfect ACT score. His father was law enforcement. His family brought in a minister, hoping to convince him to turn himself in. Now, on paper, this is not the profile of a deranged drifter. But here's the reality. Tyler Robinson, he walked away from the Mormon church, he rejected his faith, and he dove headfirst into the darkest corners of the internet. Furry communities, or Fury communities, however you want to pronounce them. Trans activist Discord servers, radical meme culture that mocked Christians and conservatives every single day. And the deeper he went, the angrier he became. Angrier at his church, angrier at his family, angrier at the very idea of conservative values. He built this worldview of hostility shaped by online groups and reinforced by a partner that his own family described as unstable and full of hatred. Now, Robinson didn't just wake up hating Charlie Kirk one day. In fact, he was radicalized to see conservatives as fascist, as enemies of the people. And this is where this story intersects with George Soros funded networks that pump billions of dollars into keeping these radical narratives alive. Now, your biggest enemy isn't bad health. It's bad Medicare coverage. Seriously, because even with good health, the wrong Medicare plan can drain your money, it can cut your doctors, and it can leave you completely vulnerable. So this is why I partner with Chapter. They expose the flaws in your Medicare plan, and they replace them with coverage that actually protects you. Now, Leslie beat the enemy. She saved $1,000. Sharon beat it too. She got back coverage after getting dropped. So ask yourself, are you going to keep fighting alone? or you're going to join the thousands of people who have already called for backup. Now, most people are calling the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. The phone number is 909-563-8279. Tell them your friend Ron says hello. So now I want to go ahead and peel back the layers of Tyler Robinson's social media trail, because this is really where things get a little chilling. Investigators and journalists, they've uncovered these accounts that paint a very dark picture. Now, one Instagram under the name Sir Lancelot, completed with like furry style avatar and the phrase friendly neighborhood license fish finder. I mean, it sounds silly on the surface, right up until you realize that in trans and drag slang, fish is a term for passing as female. This wasn't a joke, okay? Or it wasn't just a joke. It was Robinson and his partner signaling their immersion into a world far removed from traditional values. So on Fur Affinity, a site notorious for sexualized cartoon content, Robinson's handles matched ones that he had used in gaming communities. And then there's the Discord activity, rooms that were steeped in Antifa chatter, the same kind of radical echo chamber that basically celebrates smashing fascists while targeting conservatives by name. But the darkest evidence came from the bullet casings themselves. On the very shells that were used in Charlie Kirk's assassination was engravings on them. Notice bulges. OWO, what's this? A meme straight. This is a meme phrase that's straight out of furry subculture. So another casing bore the lyrics "Bella CIO, Bella CIO," an Antifa anthem sung in the streets during riots. And one more says, "Hey fascists, catch this bullet." That wasn't satire. That was intent. Robinson was broadcasting his ideology, etching it into metal, and then pulling the trigger. Now, don't forget, this didn't happen in isolation. Robinson's partner, Lance Twiggs, has been described by his own relatives as unstable, angry, and hostile toward Christians and conservatives. They said he was dangerous. They said that they feared that he would hurt someone. This is who Robinson chose to live with, to immerse himself in, and together they fed off of each other's hatred. And it goes even deeper than this. Authorities have confirmed that Robinson was active in multiple Antifa Discord servers, including one that was also tied to the Butler, Pennsylvania assassin. This is the same young man who tried to kill President Trump at a rally earlier last year. So let that sink in, okay? Two different shooters, both plugged into the same online radical networks. This is not a coincidence. This is a pipeline. So when the media tries to tell you Robinson was some confused loner, I don't want you to buy that. Don't buy into that, guys. He was plugged into these radical subcultures, nurtured by online mobs, and connected to the very groups that President Trump is now targeting. And so here's where it gets even more infuriating, because while the evidence is stacking sky high, the mainstream media is already running interference. You got CNN, instead of reporting Robinson's Antifa connections, they went ahead and decided to try and spin a fantasy. They went on air claiming maybe, just maybe, Tyler Robinson was tied to Nick Fuentes and the Gyroppers. So that somehow this wasn't left-wing violence at all, but somehow it was right-wing violence. Let me go ahead and stop right here, okay? That's not just dishonest. It is obscene. The Utah governor himself said this motive was political, that Robinson was steeped in leftist ideology. The FBI confirmed the casings were etched with Antifa slogans. Family and neighbors described him as radicalized and anti-Christian, and yet CNN wants you to believe he was secretly a right-wing extremist because he once squatted in an Adidas tracksuit for a Halloween photo. I mean, come on, guys. This isn't reporting. This is a cover-up by design. The playbook is obvious. Blur the lines, muddy the waters, and protect the networks that are really fueling the chaos. Which brings us to the biggest bombshell of them all. Because while CNN was busy running cover, President Donald J. Trump, he went on offense. He stood there before the nation and said, enough is enough. The Department of Justice will now target George Soros-linked NGOs. Arabella Advisors, the Tide Foundations, and others, not as charities, not as civic groups, but as criminal enterprises. And the tools he's using, RICO charges, the same legal hammer that's used to break the mafia. Trump laid it out plainly. This isn't protest. This isn't grassroots. This is riots on the streets, organized chaos, professional agitation bankrolled by billionaires. And it's time for the law to catch up with the money trail. He even described the moment that pushed him over the edge. Walking into a restaurant and realizing the protesters weren't volunteers, they were paid operatives. Their profession is agitation. And who funds them? George Soros, Open Society, the shadow networks. Trump said it flat out. We're going to look into Soros because this is a RICO case. Think about the gravity of that, okay? The president of the United States in office today is calling out George Soros by name and directing the DOJ to dismantle his entire empire through criminal prosecution. This is unprecedented, guys. This is historic. So the question becomes, how deep does this network go? When President Trump says Soros-linked NGOs are fueling chaos, he's not talking about one office with a couple of clerks in there. He's actually talking about a dark money ecosystem designed to fund permanent unrest. So let's lay it out, okay? You got the Open Society Foundation, Soros flagship, with 4 separate tax-exempt charities and one 501c4 funneling cash into activism. Then there's the Tides Foundation, backed heavily by the Pritzker family, the same family dynasty behind Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. They've got 3 tax-exempt charities and their own dark money vehicle. Now, if you add the Rockefeller Foundation nexus and spinoffs like the Singham Network, and what do? You get a multi-billion-dollar machine that's pumping cash into every radical cause that you can imagine. So what does this money actually do? Well, it funds these permanent protests, it bankrolls bail funds for rioters, it pays for massive legal campaigns that overwhelm local governments and police departments, it finances the campaigns of radical DAs who let criminals run free, it shapes immigration policy, drug laws, criminal justice reforms that destabilize communities, and it handpicks local politicians like Ilhan Omar and AOC to carry the banner inside government. Folks, this is not random. This is not organic. This is the infrastructure that takes a kid like Tyler Robinson, radicalized online, and invalidates his rage with billions in institutional support. So here's where it gets real interesting, though. Bill Gates just flinched. That's right, guys. The Gates Foundation abruptly cut ties with Arabella Advisors, one of the most notorious dark money networks in the country. Why? Because the writing is on the wall. Trump has the DOJ circling. The threat of RICO charges is real, and all of a sudden, even billionaires don't want their name tied to groups that could end up in the crosshairs. So now, was Bill Gates doing this out of conviction? Don't bet on it, guys. He just met with President Trump a few days ago, and insiders say this is pure survival mode, distancing himself before the crackdown begins. Optics, not principle. Still, it does show the power of this particular movement. If Trump's pressure can force cracks in the billionaire donor class, imagine what happens when subpoenas start flying. So here's where all the dots start to connect, okay? You got Tyler Robinson. He didn't just wake up one morning and decide to engrave, hey, fascist, catch this bullet onto a bullet casing. That mindset was fed. It was reinforced. It was normalized by years and years of rhetoric coming from some of the highest levels of media and politics. How many times have we heard it? Donald Trump is a fascist. The MAGA movement is authoritarian. Conservatives are Nazis. This is repeated on cable news, in classrooms, on social media, day after day, year after year. Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he even said Trump was a fascist to his core. Now think about that. The top military brass calling a sitting president a fascist. So what happens when that language trickles down to young people who are already immersed in radical subcultures online? Well, it just becomes the justification for violence. Robinson's casings weren't random scribbles. They were the direct echo of a narrative that was funded by billionaire-backed NGOs and amped up by their media allies. Words became bullets, and one of those bullets took the life of Charlie Kirk. And so make no mistake, Charlie Kirk's assassination was the final straw. This is the moment that turned a simmering crackdown into a full-scale campaign, because Trump's inner circle is saying, they're saying the quiet part out loud. Charlie Kirk's death was not just a tragedy, it was a catalyst. Stephen Miller himself, he revealed that Charlie Kirk's last message before his death was clear. We must dismantle the radical left organizations fermenting violence. That was his warning. And just days later, Trump is acting on it. The administration is no longer treating these NGOs as untouchable charities. They're being treated as what they are: engines of political violence, laundering billions of dollars into civil unrest. This is really why Trump's move is so historic. For decades, conservatives complained about Soros funding chaos, but now, with Kirk's blood on the ground and Robinson's radicalization laid bare, the president of the United States, he's saying enough. It ends right here. So where does this all go from here? Well, President Trump, he has laid out the roadmap. The Department of Justice isn't just circling, it's preparing to strike. I mean, we're talking RICO charges against Soros-linked organizations, conspiracy and insurrection cases for NGO leaders who have been fueling unrest, the seizure of funds, the dismantling of financial pipelines, and the prosecution of anyone who's crossed the line from protest to political violence. Trump has promised to use every legal tool available, civil and criminal, to tear down the networks that created Tyler Robinson, that celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder, and that continue to pump poison into America's streets. He's made it very clear. This is not about silencing dissent. It is about restoring order, truth, and accountability in a country where billionaires have hidden behind these nonprofits to bankroll chaos. So here's the warning that we all need to hear. Tyler Robinson is not an isolated case. He's the product of a system engineered by Soros, Arabella, Tides, Rockefeller, and their web of dark money allies. A system that radicalizes youth, dehumanizes conservatives, and then shrugs when words turn into bullets. Now, if this network isn't stopped, we're not just looking at more protests. We're looking at the future of a civil terror where chaos is permanent, where violence is normalized, and where law-abiding Americans are forced to live in fear. But here's the difference today. Donald J. Trump is president. He has drawn the line. The crackdown has begun. And for the first time in decades, the people funding America's destruction are the ones on defense. So remember this date, okay, guys? Because years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to say this was the moment when the tide turned, when the truth about Tyler Robinson's radical past and the billions fueling it was finally exposed, and when America decided that enough was enough. Hit the like button, subscribe, share this video so that every patriot knows the fight that we're in and the fight that we're finally winning. See you next time.